ambitious to be profitable this time, given where oil prices are. Are you still confident you will be profitable this year?
Well, I mean, looking at how things are in the last couple of months, last year, for example, if you look at our performance, in the third quarter, we have been making profit of about 62 million. In the fourth quarter, we made profits of about 8.5 million. I think looking at how things are in the last couple of months, in the month of January and February, I think we are still on track to be able to make profits of this year. I think the growth of the passengers from Indonesia and I think the declining intensity of the competition is also a factor for us to believe that by this year we will still be making profits. And I think talking about oil, we still believe that even though that there is still some trends of oil price actually picking up until the third quarter, we believe after that the oil price will start to stabilize.
What oil price would you be concerned about? At what oil price would you be impacted?
Well, I think right now somewhere beyond $70, $75 per barrel is the level that we are probably need to be a little bit more concerned. Right now, if you look at the jet fuel price for between February and March, we have been actually seeing that the jet fuel price has been declining a little bit. But of course, when travelers' market is actually picking up, usually in the month of June and July, most probably jet fuel is starting to pick up again. But then we believe it will stabilize following the price of the crude oil after the month of August or September.
As you consolidate, as you restructure Garuda, you're also putting on hold your aircraft delivery. And so far, the number out there is that you're putting on hold 25 aircraft. Is that accurate?
It is somewhere between 25 to 35 aircrafts that we are trying to delay. I think the whole idea is how are we going to be able to optimize the utilization of the aircrafts that we have, both the narrow bodies as well as the wide bodies aircrafts. So I think the number is pretty accurate. It is actually going to be somewhere between 25 to 35, and it will be the ones that was actually initially expected to be delivered sometimes in 2017, 2018, and 2019, and trying to push it back from somewhere between 2019 until 2023.
You've also talked about expanding your domestic as well as international routes. Give us a sense of where you're intending to fly and what you're intending to do over the next 12 months.
You're right. I think what we are trying to do, we have two brands of airlines. Citylink, of course, is the low-cost carrier that we have, and I think what we intend to do is to be able to significantly increase the capacity and the production of our Citylink airline. And I think for Garuda, what we intend to do domestically is to probably not to increase the number of destinations and also to increase the production more on the international. So what I intend to do domestically is trying to increase the utilization of our ATRs as well as our CRJ aircrafts by somewhere of between 17 to 30%, and also increase the production and capacity of our mainly 330 Airbus as well as the 777s that we have, so that will be more on the international. And then for Garuda, some of the new destinations this year, for example, we increased to destination to Xi'an and Zhengzhou. I think China, as you know, is a big market, and particularly for us because we are trying to support.
Could China be a game changer for you?
I think so, yeah. I think China is one of the markets that we are seriously looking into. I mean, right now there are about 120 million travelers going to outside of China, for example. And I think that is only about 8 to 9% of the potential markets in China. And so we think that our position in Asia, for example, will play a significant role in terms of how are we going to be able to tap into the Chinese market.
There's been a lot of talk about fostering joint ventures with foreign partners. Are you considering that?
Well, I think if it's actually joint venture as a form of trying to actually work with another airlines to be able to serve a particular route, that is certainly something that we are actually looking into. 3 markets that we are trying to seriously looking into is, of course, we talk about China. We need to talk about the Middle East and their European markets, and also most probably also somewhere in Asia Pacific.
Pahala, big fundraising plans. I think the number out there is $500 million. How accurate is that, and what are the plans?
Well, right now what we are trying to do is to be able to raise somewhere of between 500 to 750 million US dollars. The amount seems to be quite large, but that the purpose is mainly to refinance the upcoming maturity of existing bonds, both in terms of rupiah as well as the US dollar bonds. This year we have about $200 million, about 2 trillion rupiah of Indonesian bonds that are actually maturing in the third quarter 2018. In 2019 also we have about $500 million of global sukuk bonds that is actually also maturing. So the amount seems big, but in terms of the incremental additional debt that we are taking on our balance sheet, it is actually relatively small, somewhere of about $50 to $100 million only of additional debt that we're taking.
Pahala, you're pretty new in this position. You took over the position back in April. From the banking world, what do you view as the biggest challenge for you and for Garuda?
Well, I think it is most probably the competition in the airlines industry. The second part is how are we going to be able to put Garuda to have a competitive cost position. I think as an airline, as the airline industry in Indonesia, a lot more of the travelers are becoming part of the low-cost markets, and the penetration of the low-cost competitors are actually quite significant. I think the challenge for us is, number one, how are we going to be able to grow Citylink as our airline that is actually going to be competing in the low-cost markets.
Will Citylink be listed very quickly?
No, I think that is actually, we need to find a way for us to be able to, and I think one of the reasons why we are taking more debt by raising capital this year is to be able to finance Citylink, but I think for us the idea is not to actually raise equity,
right.
But I think for us to be able to support their financing.